to Second Saturday. Today's art adventure will be painting a landscape. In your kit, you should have a picture of the landscape we are doing today, the various paints that you'll be using, a canvas, a paper plate for a palette, a paintbrush. You will need to supply a rag and a container for water, and if you want, a pencil or a piece of chalk. So the first thing you want to do is, we'll look at our picture here, is to determine where the horizon line is, and that's where the land meets the sky. I'm just going to draw that in with the chalk or pencil here, and you can see right there is where the land meets the sky. So what we need to do is determine where that's going to be on our painting. And you can use either the chalk or the pencil, it doesn't matter. I've even used a little bit of paint on a paintbrush and just go, well, I want my horizon line to be right there, okay? And the next thing you want to determine, since this picture actually has some mountains in the background, is to decide where your hills and mountains and where your trees are going to be. And again, you can just take a little bit of paint, just a little bit, and say, okay, well, my mountains are going to be, here's some of those closer mountains, and then here's that big mountain in the back I want to put in. Don't have to be fussy about how it's drawn on there, just a light sketch. It's going to get all painted over. This is just to give you an idea of where things are going to go. I also know that I've got some trees here that I want to put in the way in the background. So I'm going to kind of signify this is kind of where my trees are going to go right into here. And I see there's another little bunch over here. So now that I've got, I think I actually want to put that path in there too. You can see there's somebody walking on this path. I would like to put that path in. I don't know yet about the person. I'll decide that later, but I think I like the path. So I know I want my path to kind of start here, kind of go maybe over that direction. Usually they're a little bit wider as they're closer to you, and then they narrow off really quite a bit as they go further into the distance. So now you can see I've got a general idea of where everything is going. The first thing I want to do now when I start painting is to get all my sky in. I don't want to use the paint right out of the container. So I've got several blues here I'm going to work with. And I'm also going to use some white. I'm using my sticks my popsicle sticks there to put it on the palette. So now I'm going to decide kind of what color blue I want. I'm just going to kind of mix those up and get kind of a nice blue. And then I'm going to start painting it in. And you have to think about kind of what direction the sky goes. It kind of tends to go horizontally. So you want your brush strokes to go horizontally. So right now I'm just going to get all the sky in. Kind of grabbing more paint as I need it. You got plenty of paint in your cups for this size canvas, so don't be bashful about using paint. You want some nice, thick, juicy paint on your canvas. Don't be stingy. So you can see I've just kind of worked around where those mountains are, the hills are, and where the trees are. So now that I got a good idea, that sky, and it's okay if you see those brush strokes. That's what makes painting so interesting. It doesn't have to be smooth and flat, all one color. Keep some variations in the darks and the lights of them. I might actually get just a little bit of purple, because I think I'm going to have just a little bit of darkness down kind of in this corner here. And I want to get some clouds in there too. I want some of this kind of wispy clouds I'm going to kind of go for. And you can kind of make this up as you go. Make any kind of cloud you want work with them until they kind of look like you want. You want big fluffy clouds, you can kind of do that too. Something, I kind of got those clouds a little close together. I don't like that, so I'm just gonna kind of cover over it and it's sort of like erasing them. So you can see how I got rid of that real fast because I didn't like that. And that's okay. Sometimes you can use little dabbing motions with your brush to create some texture. This is where your individual voice comes in, that you can kind of create that however you'd like. Maybe there's some more mountains back there. I think since I know my mountains have kind of snow on the top, I'm gonna get the area behind there with a little bit of that darker purple color to make it so that I know when I get that white snow on the top of that mountain that it's going to show up nice. See, I didn't worry about getting exactly on a line. I went over that mountain a little bit. That's fine because in the next segment you'll see how we start to cover those up. So I think I'm pretty happy. Maybe I'll get a little cloud over there yet too. I'm out of paint. See now how I went back with my stick to get more paint on my palette, because if I'd go in there I'd ruin that whole bunch of white paint with my blue brush. There, I like that third cloud up there in that corner. I'm going to rinse my brush out because the next area I'm going to do is the mountain. So the mountain I'm going to make more of a darker, mix a little red in there, maybe a little bit of white, a little bit of green. Because if I mix that green with the red, I'm going to get a really dark color. And I mix it with the purple, I can get kind of almost a... So you got, see, I got kind of a nice variations of purple and from dark to light going on with that. So that's the color I decided I want my mountain. You can make your mountain any color you want. If you wanted a hot pink mountain, you could do a hot pink mountain. And you know what? If you don't like the color of your mountain when you get it mixed up and put it on there, you can always change it. And you know what? I don't like the color of that mountain. So I'm going to change it up some. Add a little bit of blue in there. Make it more of a bluish grayish mountain. There, I'm liking that a lot better. So you can see I didn't mix that color. I used, because my mountain was already a wet paint, I went back and got some white and some blue and kind of changing the color right on top of the canvas. Okay, so now I want that snow on, so I'm gonna get some pure white again. Rinse my brush out really good so that I can maintain some of that more pure white. Grab some of that because I know when I go on to this wet paint here, it's gonna start to pick it up and blend it a little bit. So I'm gonna do a really light touch and just add a little bit of snow at the top of that mountain. And go up a little bit higher, up into that sky and maybe over. So you can see I kind of went up into my sky, changed the shape of that mountain just a little bit over here, and that's okay. This isn't a coloring book with exact lines that you have to follow. I can see in my picture that there's actually a little bit of snow coming down in through here a little bit too, so I might put a little bit, just a little bit down in there, not much. Okay. Now I realize I'm probably going a little faster, and you can spend as much time as you want on each little segment. Stop the video if you need to catch up. So, and you can, at any point, you can always go back and work into another area too. You can also take a hairdryer and blow it all if you feel like it's really difficult to paint when it's wet and you pick up the other colors and you start getting mushy edges. It's a really light touch of the brush if you're gonna go wet paint into wet paint. So if that's difficult, take a hairdryer, dry it all before you do the next one. So our next section will be our mountain, they're more of smaller mountains or hillsides right into here and in our trees. So for that I'm going to need some of this green, and I already got some red and other blue on there, so I'm going to use a little bit of this green. And you know, if your plate gets too full, if you got a plate at home, grab another plate, start again, go rinse this off if you have to. So I kind of mixed kind of a dark purpley green kind of. It's green, but it's a really pretty dark green. And I'm just going to quickly lay in where those I don't know if they're really mountains. I guess they're mountains. They're just shorter mountains. Right up here. Maybe they are more of a hill. I guess the foothills is what they are technically called, right? Okay, so I quickly laid those in so I know where those are gonna go. And I kind of know that they go a little bit over here. Ah, heck, I'm just gonna fill in this whole background here because the tree will come later. I know I have a tree that goes in over here. Okay, so the paint's kind of thin. That's okay, because this is just the first layer. Just getting things laid out still. I get a little extra paint on there. I'm gonna start putting it on a little thicker now that I know where everything needs to go. Maybe brighten it up a little bit. Use a little bit of a more of a dabbing motion, because I know that those are kind of like trees on those hills, whereas this mountain back here is probably more rocks. So I want that texture to kind of show that there's something there. So you just keep working it. I sometimes go in and get a little bit of a dark color to give it a little variation. Maybe there's a hill kind of hiding behind one. So the one in front would be a little bit brighter. So you can see how putting that little bit of yellow right there kind of brightened up this front one, so that I could see that there was a different a little hill back there. And And if I go back and I even darken up that a little bit. Now that really pops out. You can see the different hills. I might have to do that over here too. So this is where you start working it. Changing up the colors as you see fit. If something you don't like, just go back over it. I'm not going to worry too much about this little hill here because I know my tree is going to be there. And that will be my next thing I put in, or one of the last things I put in. So I'm just going to get a base color kind of down there. I don't like that real pointy area there, so I'm going to kind of round that off a little bit. So you can see how I can change that shape of that if I didn't like something. I kind of like that little bit of purple that showed up there. Kind of gives it a little bit distinction that there's some variations. There's other things going on in that hill. Maybe there's an indent or an incline going up another hill. Okay, so I'm reasonably happy with that. It's not looking too bad. There's a little bit of an area back here I just want to fix with my Purple Mountain right in there. There. Okay. So now we have the area called the foreground. That's all this part down here. We're a little closer to that, so we're going to see a few more details. What I'm going to do first is get an idea of where my path is. I'm going to put that in kind of a, I'm mixing a little bit of the green and the red and a little bit of white to get kind of a, I don't know, kind of a dirt color. Doesn't have to be much. Don't forget to rinse your brush out once in a while, especially if you're going to be changing colors. So now I want to get just a nice general base coat of all my pasture, the flat area where all those flowers are. I'm not worried too much about a lot of stuff right here. I'm just going to get some good base color in. I might need a little bit of yellow in there. Maybe a little bit of white. Sometimes greens and yellows tend to be like a thinner pigment, and you can sometimes see through them really easy. So mixing them with a yellow and a white will kind of help that. But you never want to take paint right directly out of the container and just paint with that. Always be mixing it. It gets your own personal color. Someone's already made that decision to make those colors. When you start mixing, then you get to have your own voice and your own colors. So you can see how all of a sudden this entire landscape absolutely came to life. Now I'm going to work on getting the texture I want. There's some really interesting, this is like this incredible field of little white flowers all over. It's not big enough. I don't know what kind of flowers there are, but I imagine in real life it was amazing to be walking through there. So what I'm going to start doing is getting, maybe in the background, a little bit darker green. I think I might mix just a little bit of my blues that I have. Yeah, let's get some of this, this blue in here. So if you mix blue with your green, you're gonna get a darker green. You can see how I got a darker green. And I want that little darker green back here, but I don't want it that dark. I want it to definitely be different. And I want it to be kind of bright too. You know, this is the front of the painting where you can see a little bit more what's going on. Remember, you don't have to keep painting over it to get it all one solid color. You want to see some brush marks. You want to see the different variations in the paint strokes. So you can see I'm getting mine so that it's a little bit brighter, closer to me where I'm standing. Because usually in paintings, the farther you go back into the horizon, kind of the darker, the foggier, the hazier it might get. It's just because it's a little bit farther away from you. So I'm kind of really liking the way this is starting to look now. You may decide to work a little bit longer on to get it the way you like it. But I want to work on this the edge of the path, because I know that these grasses and flowers kind of overlap that a little bit. It's not a real hard, crisp edge. So I'm using the end of my brush to just kind of get that little texture going. So it looks like there's like plants kind of tumbling over, and maybe some of the path you don't quite see because there's a lot of, you know, grass kind of tumbling over, but leave a little bit of hint of it so you can still kind of see it. And I can also take my brush and add a little bit of yellow and brightness. I'm going to use the end of it so it's a little more upright, so I can get maybe some texture of grass kind of going in here too. I know there's a whole field of flowers, and there's the texture of the leaves of the plants. And I'm leaving, do you see how I left a little bit of that dark kind of peeking through it? I didn't cover it all totally up. I notice I didn't get more paint to make this area brighter, because that's definitely farther away and has to be a little bit darker. I'm keeping all my brightness up front here. And what's kind of interesting is right in through here, a little bit of that sky that was still showing through. It almost looks like a little village of houses back there. So, you know, I just might play with that idea. I like to call those little happy accidents. You never know what can happen. So, keep an open mind at all times. Okay, I'm kind of liking that now. Maybe a little bit more down through here. Okay, so I need a little bit of a clean brush because I want to get a pop of those nice white flowers in. So I want a nice clean brush. I'm going to find a little spot there to do that. I'm just gonna do a little bit on the very end of my brush so I can just make like little tiny dots of flowers. Very lightly. You know, and I'm kind of thinking I might want another color. So, because, you know, we're using this picture, this photograph, but it's just an inspiration. And I am looking, I'm going, you know, I would like a little pop of maybe some pink little flowers down in this corner here. Some other kind of flower that's kind of growing. That's a little bit too much, so I'll take some of that paint off. And maybe there's some kind of interesting dark purple kind of, or dark red, or something going on over here too. Just imagine yourself kind of walking through a field of flowers and what you might see. I'm not worried about making an exact flower shape. I'm just getting the feeling that there's a flower there. Maybe a couple of stray ones up in the front here. Oops, that didn't look like a flower at all. Easy enough to correct. So now you can choose if you want to. We see there's some pine trees in this picture that are up a little bit closer to us. You can choose to leave those out, or you can put them in. I am going to choose to leave them out because right now I want to work on this kind of area where the open field starts to get to the those foothills, and those are some kind of like almost like a low growing areas of pine trees or shrubs or something back there. They're pretty small, so it's hard to see what they are, but they're definitely a different color. So I'm mixing some of my red and purple in there just to give it a little variation than the mountain back there. So I know that there's like kind of like something going on there. We're not really sure. I'm not going to fill up the whole area, just maybe little areas there to know that, oh, there's something back there. I think I need a little more green paint here. I didn't like the color of that one, so I'm going to change it up a little bit. And something going on over here. Yeah, and originally there was like a big tree, big clump of trees there, but you know what? I think we'll just make this into something else. Whoops, that was too much. So you do something like that, you go, whoa, that was too much green. Just gotta wipe your brush off and dab it back out. And I really like that little bit of blue back there, so I'm gonna attempt to work with it. So I'm thinking that path ended up leading right to some little nice mountain village. So I'm gonna take a little bit of blue, and I got some white here already. I'm gonna actually take the end of it, because that's just a tiny little spot. I'm gonna take the end of my brush, or maybe a Q-tip even you could use, and just kind of lightly put in a sense that there's something going on back there. And you know what? It's a little bit too bright, so I'm gonna pick that up and get rid of that. It was a little bit too much. There. I think that's kind of working. We know there's something there. We're not sure what it is. It's so far away. But I bet if we walked it on that path, we'd eventually find out what it is. It's a little bit too white right there, so a little bit of green in there. Notice I'm still kind of using the back of my brush here just to give it some small little texture. There. I could work on this for a couple more hours. I could say I'm done. It's looking pretty good. It's a good set of instructions, I think, for you guys to continue on. And we would love to see what you have done with yours. So enjoy. Have a great day.